No, don't close the AC.
Well, I can turn it on.
Don't turn it off. Omar, don't turn off the AC.
No, he's turning it on. It doesn't sound like it's on.
It's on.
Is it on auto or is it on?
Just need to turn on the other side. Okay.
Is it on auto or on?
No, it's on. It's coming here, so I think that's from the other side. So she will do it. Asra, Tasneem will take care of it. Just calm down. Calm down. It's from the other side, okay? That one, that outlet is from the other side. So she will turn on the other one. Yeah. It always does. See? If you listen, things will make sense.
That last semester we were like suffering.
No, see, people from Michigan, they always beats me. Okay, let's start with hematology. I know we have done immunology, part of it, but just at least let's start with blood. Just have the basic understanding. What did I do? Wow. Okay. Blood. When you say the term blood, something should come up to mind. What does blood mean to you? Blood. Life, sure. What's blood?
It's a liquid.
It's a liquid? Is it only liquid?
No.
It's solid too. Okay, let's divide it that way. That's good. That's perfect. Let's divide blood into liquid and solid. About 55% of blood is liquid. 90% is water, but in terms of, what do we call the liquid part of it? Plasma. And the solid part? Cells. You can call it blood cells, right? Cells or blood cells. It's better to call it blood cells because they're not any other cells, right? Okay. In terms of these blood cells, what are the types? How many types of blood cells do we have? 3? You said 3, right? Okay, so RBC, which we're doing this term. WBC, we have done this already with, and then, for those who are new, it will come back. We'll do it with immunology. And then, of course, platelet. I'll just put PC, stands for platelet count. Okay, platelets. 3 types of blood cells. 3 types of blood cells. Okay? And plasma. What is plasma? How would you define plasma? Look, the reason I'm asking you guys, each one of you is qualified to answer these basic questions. You went to college. These is in high school it's being taught, right? So it's okay. Try to recollect, remember whatever you can. So what's plasma?
Solution. It's a mixture for proteins.
Okay. Maybe this would help. How could you differentiate between plasma and serum?
Coagulation factor.
Almost. Both are liquid, right? Plasma is liquid plus protein and clotting factors. Serum is without it. That's pretty much the difference. Okay. Like albumin is removed out of it, for example. Clotting factor is removed. Okay, so let's do this. Plasma is liquid, so it will include proteins. Protein. Why do I keep pressing on this button? Proteins. Anything else? Electrolytes, yeah? Okay. And again, we'll learn about all these electrolytes. For example, sodium is extremely, extremely important. Very, very important. Look, I'll go as slow as you want me to. Make sure you understand things. Sodium is the most important electrolyte of plasma. Your plasma concentration depends on sodium. Osmolality or osmolarity of plasma depends on sodium. Roughly, you should memorize this. The appropriate concentration in milli equivalent per liter is about average 142. Sodium concentration of your plasma is, roughly speaking, about 142. Milli, small m, equivalent, big E, over Q. Over L, liter. Okay. All right, so sodium maintains the plasma concentration. Therefore, sometimes if we have hyponatremia, for example, hyponatremia means low sodium concentration, or hypernatremia. It can actually lead to neurological problems. maybe confusion, maybe lethargy, and hyponatremia can have fever because it can lead to dehydration. Extracts fluid from your brain cells into blood vessels to dilute it. Okay, so electrolytes again. The important electrolytes will be sodium, potassium, calcium. You want me to write it down? Okay, I'll write it down. Sodium, calcium, potassium, chloride. Okay, so these are important ones, and you should know them. We'll discuss each one of them when we reach the plasma section. But today I want to start with RBCs. Proteins. Proteins are also important, especially clotting factors. Let me give you the names so you write it down. Proteins. Proteins. Plasma protein. Look, we're not talking about any protein. We're talking about what kind of proteins? Plasma protein. Plasma protein. The most important one is albumin. Albumin. Clotting factor. That's 2. Clotting factors. 2 so far. Third, complements. Anything else? Plasminogen is very important. Okay. If you're going to write the name of this protein in bracket next to it, write quickly. Albumin are primarily for transport. You see, plasma is liquid, water is liquid. Lipid-soluble things, for example, fat. Each one of you know that they don't dissolve in water. For example, steroid hormones, cholesterol, triglyceride, right? They don't dissolve in water. And plasma is 99% water. So you have to have a mechanism to carry things that don't dissolve in water. Otherwise, they can cause problems. We'll discuss that later, okay? So for now, when you have protein, albumin, in the bracket next to it, right, it is a plasma carrier protein. It's like taxis, like cars, trains, bicycles, whatever you want. It carries things around, okay? So it transports things that are not soluble in water. You know that everything we eat, it essentially has to be what? Absorbed into blood. So how do you carry things that are not soluble in water and plasma? You need a transporting mechanism, and that is albumin. Clotting factors, yeah.
For the osmolarity, you said 1.2
Milli, small m, E, capital E, Q over L. Okay. Now, in terms of clotting factors, what does a clot mean to you? Clot. Blockage, sealing, right? Clotting factors are there. They're supposed to be in your blood vessels. Why? Because if your blood vessel goes through trauma, it's injured, and it bleeds, who will seal that cut? Clotting factors, okay? So clotting factors have to be in plasma. They have to be part of your blood vessels because it's supposed to seal trauma to your blood vessels, okay? If there's a hole, there's a cut, there's a trauma, there's an injury, there's a tear, or whatever it might be. So they're clotting factors for clotting, okay? We'll talk about platelets too. Before I forget, remember that clotting factors are primarily for large cuts, for big bleeding, prevents large bleeding. Platelets, small bleedings. So as a result, when you memorize this, when you understand it, and then times come for applications, if somebody just has a basic purple rash on their skin, small bleeding under skin, not blood gushing out, that means you have platelet problems. But if you have bleeding into joints and there's blood drops coming out, small drop, maybe clotting factors, like hemophilia, right? So there's a difference between clotting factor and platelets. Platelets are supposed to see small cuts in capillaries. All the clotting factors can see larger cuts, okay? So, as a result, if you have clotting factor deficiency, we'll learn that like hemophilia, you will have large bleeding, more tendency to bleed. When you have platelet, maybe just a rash. The bleeding will go under your skin and it will appear as a rash, not something like gushing out and so forth. So, complement, right? Was it complement? Mm-hmm. Yeah, complement is for protection against microbes, especially bacteria. Now, those of you who have taken, because next Monday you will have a question on microbiology as an old question, right? Not for new students, for them it's bonus, for you guys it's not, right? What was the function of clotting factor specifically? To protect against what? Complement, sorry, complement. What was I saying? Complements.
You're encapsulated and
What kind of bacteria?
encapsulated and
Nope.
Neisseria.
Neisseria meningitidis. Especially gram-negative. Why is that?
Mac-attack complex.
Why is that? What is Staph aureus?
It's gram-positive.
Okay, but do clotting factor know? Do they have a brain like, oh, gram-positive, gram-negative, I'm going to
Oh,
put this?
they're too big.
The cell wall is thin. There you go. So clotting factors,
No complement.
complements, they're there to defend against bacteria, okay? For now. We'll go in more in detail. So what was, anything else? Plasminogen, also in clotting. It's required for platelet aggregation. Platelet aggregation. Plasminogen for platelet aggregation. Okay. So this part will come maybe in 4 days. I'll talk about this part in 4 days, okay? I'll just give you a brief overview. Now, WBC, wait a whole year for this, okay? Platelet will come in a week. This is what I want to do today, RBCs. Okay, I want to do RBCs today. We'll do RBCs today. Now, when we talk about blood cells, let's just do this thing called blood cells. Before we go to RBCs, it's a good idea to know the relevance of each in terms of proportions. So we have RBCs and we have WBCs. Again, today I'm just giving a brief overview, right? So you come prepared tomorrow. And I'll tell you before we end what to study for tomorrow. You see, if you don't come ready, you want to write everything. And then it takes away from your understanding. And then we have to work again, and it takes a lot of energy. Why waste energy twice if you can do once and get it right, correctly the first time? Okay, roughly speaking, so blood cells in terms of concentration, in terms of percentage. Plasma is about 55% of total blood volume. 55. 45% is cells. That's overall. When you take this thing called blood, 55% is what? Plasma. Okay? About 45% is cells. Okay? Protein maybe about 2% in between. Now, per milliliter cube of blood, we have about 6 million, 4 to 6 million, I think. I don't think you have to remember this, memorize it. I just want to give you an understanding, okay? Roughly speaking, about maximum 6 million in a normal human being, not without polycythemia, not with the disease or anything, 6 million RBCs, and I'll take the maximum number of white blood cells, 11,000. I'll put a K. You guys are computerized these days. Platelets, about 400,000. So it's usually from 2 to 4, and then 5 to 11, and then 4 to 6 million, okay? Now, if you compare that, when you look at blood, if I take a sample of blood, what would you see? If I take a sample of blood, and I put it on a plate, or I put it on a slide, and I fix it and look under the microscope, what would you see?
Red blood cells.
Everything would be red blood cells. How often would you see white blood cells? Compare 11,000 to 6 million. So it's natural when we learn anemias, and you see peripheral smear, don't look for white blood cells, you're not going to find it. Even in leukemias, you're not going to find it. You have to work hard to fix a slide in a way that you find white blood cells. Because the ratio is not even comparison. 6 million to 11,000, right? Okay, so anytime you see a slide of peripheral smear, that means you take a sample of blood. Peripheral means not from the heart, from veins or arteries, okay? So you take a sample of blood with a syringe, and you put it on a slide, and you fix it, and you look under the microscope, you will see red blood cells. Red blood cells, at least majority of them. Always, okay? Platelet is difficult to see because they're small pieces. They're not actually cells. Megakaryocytes are cells, but then they break into pieces, and those pieces are platelets, okay? All right, so I just want to make sure you understand the relevance, okay, the relative ratios of each. And you know what? You know all blood cells are produced where? Bone marrow. Now, how many types of bone marrow do you have? Because it will relate to what I just said. That's why I want to mention it now. How many types of bone marrow do you have? Why is it called bone marrow, first of all? It's located in the bone, yeah. Good job, Michelle. Now, why is it, how many types of marrow or bone marrow do you have? None? One. Two. What are the two types? Red marrow and?
Yellow and white marrow.
Yellow. Red and yellow. Why is it called red? Let's go with red first. Why is it called red? Or tell me this. Red, I'll help you. Red is made of blood cells. Yellow is fat. Don't tell me you guys didn't eat anytime. You know, like stew or something. You know, bones inside the central canal. You have a lot of fat. Come on, bone is mostly fat. I'm not talking about the bone itself. You know, the cavities. Okay, so bone marrow is 50% fat, 50% blood cells. I'm not talking about bone. Don't write bone. Write bone marrow, or just write marrow. Okay, marrow or bone marrow is 50% fat, 50% blood cells, in a sense. Now, if blood cells, majority, by far, majority of them are red. Look, you guys know cherries or pomegranates, right? It's all red, like red diamond, beautiful, right? And let's say we put raspberry, which is purple, like platelets, and let's put something white. What's something white? In terms of food, nothing? Maybe white M&M? 11,000 white M&M. 200,000 purple M&M. And 6 million red M&M. You mix them. What do you see? You look from top. All red. So that's why blood cells, the red bone marrow is called red because of red blood cells. Majority of them is red blood cells. Okay? That's the reason why they call it. All right? So it should make sense to you. You shouldn't forget when you make relations, you know, with knowledge. Red bone marrow is called red bone marrow because it's primarily made of red blood cells. But of course there's white blood cells in there. Of course there is platelets, right? That's what they're produced. Yellow is called yellow because lipids appear yellow, in a sense. Okay? So, all right. So I want to make sure you understand the relative ratios of these cells. The relative ratios, okay? One more thing. Do you understand what is blood viscosity? What's viscosity? How liquid something is and how thick something is, right? If you have cancer of, I mean, usually there's no cancer of red blood cells, but let's say you have polycythemia, increase in red blood cells. Leukemia is increase in white blood cells. Or you have increase in platelets. Which one is more likely to make blood viscous? Red blood cells. Okay? So usually pay attention to those little things. Okay, so if you have polycythemia, somebody goes in high altitude and they start producing a lot more RBCs, or they have something myelodysplastic syndrome, which RBC is part of it, they could have those issues. And as a result, you know, their whole body complexion will turn red much easier because of RBC carrying oxygen and so forth. All right, so we're okay. Let's start with RBCs. Okay. So technically for tomorrow, this is where you want to study. You want to study RBCs, okay? For tomorrow, the first 2 pages of your book. It's more than enough, okay? Red blood cell. It's called red because of carrying oxygen. It gets the red discoloration, okay? It's called B for blood because the cell is present where? In blood, okay? So red blood cell, C for cell. Start with anatomy. If it's a cell, what is it made of?
Cell membrane.
Okay, so it should be you know, if you take a donut, you look at it this way, that's what you will see. Or on the other hand, you can just look at it this way, like a disc shape. So this red blood cell should have a membrane, and it is very, very important that we understand the membrane. Most of anemias are related to the membrane. So let's know about red blood cell. Number one, a red blood cell has a membrane. Now we're talking about mature, okay? So let's put here mature. Mature red blood cells. We're not talking about immature. A mature red blood cell is completely empty of organelles. It has no organelles, no nucleus, no ribosomes, no endoplasmic reticulums, no mitochondria, no Golgi, no lysosomes, nothing. But it's a cell. You know that you cannot have a cell without nucleus. You don't call it a cell. You cannot have a cell without endoplasmic reticulum, right? You don't call it a cell. This is an empty sac. That means at one point it had all of those organelles. Erythroblast is immature red blood cells in bone marrow. And once they mature, they will come to circulation. Okay? So before they had everything. They had mitochondria. They had Golgi, endoplasmic reticulum. Okay? They had all of those organelles. Why do you think red blood cells, in their maturation from being immature red blood cells to being mature red blood cells, why were they able to lose all of those organelles? And I'm telling you they lost it. I'm telling you mature red blood cells don't have mitochondria, don't have nucleus, don't have ribosomes, don't have endoplasmic reticulums. Excellent. The only purpose RBCs serve is to carry oxygen. Let me ask you this way. Let's say I open a pizza store, okay, and I get a pizza van, and the purpose of that pizza van is to do what? To deliver or carry pizza. But let's say I put there a fridge, I put there something, maybe vending machines, I put this, that. Is there any room to carry pizza? No. So even though these cells are cells, but as they mature, they're supposed to only carry oxygen and carbon dioxide. So it is better to remove the nucleus. With time, they will lose their nucleus. RBCs will lose their nucleus as they mature. They will lose their endoplasmic reticulum, all organelles. Okay, so in that, you should be thinking now, because you're not just a blind scientist, right? So what is and they will lose mitochondria. So at the end of the day, an RBC is an empty sac. You know, like my son, you know, when I play the bubble gun with him, those bubbles that come out, that's RBC. What do you call them? Soap bubbles. I don't know, you guys have. But it's nothing, that's all there is. Inside there's nothing except liquid. I'll tell you what's inside, but it loses all its organelles. Now, let's go first. What is the purpose of mitochondria? Production of ATP. Each one of you went to high school, so please, at least in your head, think. The purpose of mitochondria is to do what? To produce ATP or energy. For what purpose? For you? No. For the RBC to carry and sustain itself. Each cell is responsible to sustain itself, just like each one of you is responsible for passing your steps, right? Now, if it has no mitochondria, how would it make ATP? There has to be one more. Now, what's unique about mitochondria in terms of making ATP?
They use oxygen and they make.
Yes, aerobic respiration occurs in mitochondria, which is from one glucose molecule. How many ATPs do you make? 38.
Oh, yeah.
With the help of mitochondria, aerobic respiration. So by far you produce enough ATPs. If you don't have mitochondria, there is the likelihood of a cell dying because of hypoxia, right? Myocardial infarction, heart attack is what? The mitochondria are not functioning, that's all. Heart attack is literally mitochondria are not functioning because there's no oxygen reaching there, because you have a cut-off of blood supply and then people die. Here, the RBC, if they don't have the mitochondria, they have to live. They have to deliver oxygen. Imagine your car, the delivery car has no gas. Gas is oxygen, right? So in a sense, would it be able to? No. That means it has to have other source. And you're right, glycolysis. So please remember that. RBCs sustain themselves through glycolysis. Okay? So they don't depend on oxygen. They don't depend on oxygen. RBCs don't depend on oxygen. They get all of their energy from what? Glycolysis. Glycolysis. Those of you who don't know what's glycolysis, gly means sugar. In this case, glucose. Lysis means breakdown. Glycolysis is a breakdown of glucose molecule. Okay? In the process, you will get about 2 ATPs. 2 net ATPs. Okay. Now, so RBCs get energy through the process of glycolysis. What if there is an enzyme in the process of glycolysis that's missing? Could that cause a problem? And that's what we're going to think. You see, you should memorize glycolysis. Those of you who have it, I'm sorry. Some of you have. Those of you who took biochemistry. So, if pyruvate kinase is deficient, what would you think? Anemia. Anemia. There you go. The rest of the body doesn't depend on it because you have other sources of energy. Okay? So when you have pyruvate kinase deficiency, which is the terminal, the last enzyme in the process of glycolysis, look for anemia. Okay? I mean, again, I'll go over this with you. So I just want to make sure, even though it's insignificant, you're like, okay, so RBCs are getting energy through glycolysis, so who cares? You care, because there are patients who have this enzyme deficiency. And that is because RBCs solely depend on glycolysis for energy. If they cannot get energy, they will not be able to deliver oxygen. Good? All right, so that's one. Now, why do you need a nucleus? You know why you need a mitochondria, right? Mitochondria is to get energy. So we're done with that. Why do you need a nucleus? Division. Now, mature RBCs don't divide. Okay, so how's that significant? Mature RBCs, you're correct. The nucleus is responsible or needed for division and what else? R-E-P, repair. Repair. So for example, if you scratch your skin, right? If you scratch your skin, what happens after 3-4 days? It's repaired. How did you get it repaired? Exactly. Why don't you just have hair grow out of there? Why don't you just have eyes grow out of there? Because the nucleus will go through mitosis and it will provide the protein needed to repair. For example, keratin, right? So RBCs, imagine you going to, I don't know if you guys have gone to Belize, those of you who have gone. Did you guys go tubing, the Belize students? No? You didn't go tubing? Okay, so when you go tubing, when the water's flowing fast, what happens to the tube? It bangs against this corner, here, there, and eventually it can pop. Or there can be a trauma. So RBCs, when your blood pressure goes up, when you get angry, let's say, if you're angry at me today, like I'm giving too much information, let's say you're angry, something like that, blood flow increases. And these RBCs will bang against this wall of the arteries, and they can get torn, they can get traumatized, they can get injured. And who needs to repair them? The nucleus. But RBCs have no nucleus, so therefore RBCs cannot be repaired. Mature RBCs, the RBCs without nucleus, they don't have the ability to repair. They don't have the ability to divide. So as a result, how long can they live? That means at least, if you haven't memorized, that's fine. At least you know their lifespan is short. You know that RBCs will not live long enough. So their lifespan is 120 days. So RBCs will be replaced every 120 days. Every 120 days. But it doesn't mean at this moment you're not producing new RBCs. Every minute, every second you're producing some. Because it's not like you produce a bunch of them in one time and you wait 120 days. No, that's not what I'm saying. But RBCs, once they mature, they have about 120 days. And then eventually they'll be replaced with new ones. Okay? Okay, so that's the significance of nucleus. The nucleus is required for repair and division. Repair and division. Okay? All right. Now, glycolysis is made of how many steps? There's about 10 enzymes. So 10 steps, right? 10 enzymes required for glycolysis. I could be wrong. I just made a number. Okay. But the major ones are major ones. Those enzymes are protein or no?
Yeah.
All enzymes are protein, right? To make a protein, what do you need?
Nucleus.
You need genes. You need DNA. You need nucleus. So not only that, the RBCs need to replenish their enzymes. So eventually they will die anyways. Okay? Because these days, USMLE is very specific, at least for IMGs. You have to be careful. You cannot, you cannot get away with things. So make sure you understand every concept of it, right? Okay, so that's for the internal organs. At the end of the day, we need to know that RBC is nothing more than an empty sac surrounded by a phospholipid bilayer. So the membrane is made of what? What's the membrane made of? Of all cells. Look. Yeah. The membrane of all cells are made of phospholipids. All cells. Any cell. So phospholipid bilayer or phospholipids. Okay. The glycolytic enzymes are part of the membrane. And some of them are swimming around in the cytoplasm. Some of them are attached to the membrane. So if you actually cause damage to the membrane, these enzymes can be released and denatured and so forth. Okay? Not only that, you know that all enzymes require optimum pH, optimum temperature, optimum pressure. Right? All enzymes. For example, pepsin. Where's pepsin? In the stomach. If you put pepsin in regular water, what happens? It denatures. Right? So enzyme requires. So as a result, if your plasma pH fluctuates, RBCs are affected. RBCs are affected. Okay, so you can still have anemia. But anyhow, so I want to tell you that it's made of phospholipid. Many phospholipids, but one is specifically important. Phosphatidylserine. Okay, it should be in your book. Maybe there's the fourth one, the last one or something. Phosphatidylserine. It is important because it's the innermost layer. Okay. Now this layer, if it's covered, the RBCs are considered normal. If this layer gets exposed, then the RBC is considered old. It takes about 120 days, roughly speaking, for this layer to get exposed. And then the RBC, look, RBCs randomly circulate, right? So all blood has to go through where? To spleen. Spleen is for removing old RBCs. Spleen, the purpose of spleen. Where's the spleen?
Left side.
Left upper quadrant?
Upper.
Okay, upper quadrant's okay. Give me more. Give me more specific landmarks. It is left. Is it in the thorax or is it in the abdomen?
Abdomen 7.
So start with abdomen. Where in the abdomen? Left upper quadrant. Luqman? Lateral and inferior to the stomach, sure. And kidneys. Anterior to the kidneys.
Rib 7 to
But
10.
give me landmarks.
Rib 7 to 10.
Pancreas, tail of the pancreas.
7,
To 10.
9, 10, 11. 9, 10, 11. Ribs 9, 10, 11. Ribs 9, 10, and 11. Okay? Ribs 9, 10, and 11. That's where the spleen is located. So look for those ribs, you will know. On the left side. So one of the most important functions of the spleen is filtration of what? Blood. Blood cells. Now compared to kidneys, what's the function of kidneys?
Serum.
Filtration of?
Plasma.
Plasma, not blood. Excellent. Plasma. Spleen, blood. White blood cells, red blood cells, especially red blood cells. Whereas kidneys, plasma. So how does spleen know what RBCs to filter, what not to? It's based on what?
Serum.
That one, exactly. What is that one? There you go. It's a phospholipid bilayer. This phospholipid layer, when it gets exposed, it's a signal for the spleen that this RBC is now beyond repair. Okay? And I'll tell you a little bit more. So in the spleen you have macrophages, and these macrophages will recognize them. Macrophages, macro means large, phage means what? Eating, swallowing. They have sharp teeth. So when you see RBCs with exposed phospholipid, the inner phospholipid layer, phosphatidylserine, when it's exposed, they eat them and they rupture them. Okay? So spleen is the major site of filtration of RBCs. Okay. Okay. you know when you see, like when I give you the example of a bubble, right? So let's go to anatomy of RBC. A bubble is spherical in shape, right? An empty bubble is spherical in shape. RBC, originally immature RBC, erythroblast, were spherical in shape. And I'll go over erythropoiesis, okay, not now. I'll give you all those stages up. But the original RBC was spherical in shape, and it was large. And it was large. Look, there's something you guys took in high school as well. At least I did. What gives the nucleus, Golgi, endoplasmic reticulum, its blue discoloration? Why does it stain blue? Especially the nucleus. Why does it stain blue? DNA. Okay, because it's basic in nature, right? So it turns blue. Now, erythroblasts are immature RBC. They have nucleus, right? So what's their color? Blue. Thank you. Blue. Okay, blue. And they're large. They're not small. They're spherical or oval shaped. So if I give you on Monday's exam a slide, I'll show you pictures too, a slide of plasma or peripheral blood, and then you see some RBC that are blue in shape and they're oval shaped, not concave or biconcave. You're going to think what? Erythroblast, right? Immature RBC. So as they lose everything and it becomes the spherical shape, then it becomes biconcave. So the mature RBC is what shape? Biconcave. What does that mean, biconcave? Let's just do it here. Biconcave. What does cave mean? Depression, right? In this case, it's depression. So it's depressed on both sides. Imagine I take, okay, let's say you take a medicine ball, and that's sort of like deflated a little bit, so it's softer. You press it from both sides. What happens? It becomes biconcave. That's RBC. Or even donut shape is a good example. Okay. What kind of donuts? Boston?
Boston cream with like squished in the middle.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so RBC is a biconcave disc. It's not spherical. Please understand the structure of RBC. It's a biconcave disc. Biconcave disc. Extremely flexible. It's extremely flexible. It squeezes through tight spaces. Now, its shape is not always the same. If there is a gap, it will go through and it will fluctuate. It's very flexible. And that's very important, especially when it comes to sickle cell anemia, because it loses flexibility. RBC number one is biconcave. We're talking about anatomy of RBCs. It's biconcave. And it's very, very flexible. And I'll tell you what gives it flexibility. Okay, soon, right away. That's one. The overall diameter of RBC is about 7 micrometer. That's very important. 7 micrometer. What is the diameter of a lumen of an artery? Let's start with aorta, if you know. Depends on human beings too, right?
Yeah.
Bigger guys, basketball, football players, soccer players,
Big
compared to people who are not athletic. About an inch. Let's go to arterioles. Millimeter. Let's go to capillaries. How about capillaries? That's what I'm interested in. What is the size of the lumen of a capillary? 8, about 7.5 to 8 micrometer. And what is the diameter of an RBC? Same thing. Now you should wonder, like, wow, how does it actually fit through this tight gap? But multiple RBCs are going through it. Is there a significance of that? I mean, each one of you should be number one. Look, when I used to study, I came to the point that none of this was accident. Honestly, that's what helps me the most. I always give a logical reason. Why should an RBC be so tightly attached to the wall of the capillaries? Why is that? Gas exchange. Congratulations. Yeah. If there's a lot of gap, that means, transport of gas and liquid is very slow. If it's membrane to membrane, the capillary wall and the RBC wall are tight, attached. There's no gap, so that means exchange can be faster, especially in the lungs. So capillary, the size of the lumen of capillary is exactly almost the same as the diameter of RBC. Okay? So again, RBC is about 7 micrometer in diameter. It's very, very flexible. Okay, so every character of RBC is strictly designed for carrying oxygen. It's unbelievable. It's crazy. The more you learn, the more you're like, wow, this is no way accident. It's completely designed. But anyhow, so biconcave, 7 micrometer diameter. Let's go further. What do we find on the membrane of RBC? You see, like you're saying, like, I don't care, but you will care soon. Sometimes you have to be patient, because as soon as you learn a disease related to one of those structures, you will care. Okay? Before, it could be a little bit boring. So there's a protein, which is a plasma membrane protein. Plasma membrane protein. You see, membrane has different names, right? Phospholipid bilayer, plasma membrane, cell membrane, right? Okay, so it doesn't matter which name I use, you will be okay, right? It's known as spectrin. Okay, spectrin. Another protein. Now these are proteins. If they're proteins, the genes coding for these proteins are found where? That's not good color. Let's choose red. Nucleus. So blue is spectrin. Purple is ankyrin. Okay. And then there's additional protein attached to these guys. Maybe I should use green. Let's just go over here. This is known as band 3. It's not a musical band. Okay. I draw it purposely like a channel because it is a channel. Okay, it's a transporting channel. Band 3. Let me write 3 inside so you know. And if I remember any protein that's in your book, just remind me so I can discuss those, okay? Spectrin is absolutely critical for the flexibility of RBC. So please understand what is the functional spectrum. It is critical for the flexibility of RBC. Also, it is a main protein in giving it biconcave shape. So without spectrin, what happens to RBC? So it would lose what? Biconcavity, right? If it's not biconcave, what would it be? Spherical. What if there are patients or people who have the gene for spectrin deficient? You can call it spectrin deficiency. But the name of the disease will be what? Spherocytosis. Because the RBCs naturally become spherical. Okay, so again, I'm telling you spectrin deficiency exists. And it is a disease. And the name of that disease is spherocytosis. Or hereditary spherocytosis because it is inherited. An X-linked in autosomal dominant fashion. X-linked in autosomal dominant. We'll discuss that. Let's leave the pathology. So look, simple, something very simple. If the functional spectrum is to give RBCs the biconcavity and flexibility, without it it's not flexible and it's not biconcave anymore. It's spherical. Now, a spherical RBCs and that's not flexible can actually, do you think you'll be able to squeeze through those gaps at the same speed as before? No. Would that be a problem? Yes. Especially in the spleen. They get trapped in the spleen. And the sharks called macrophages, they're waiting for them. But, oh my God, I found a donut. Like how cops attack donuts. So that's what happens. And it becomes hemolytic anemia. Okay? So for today, just know spectrum and its function, that's all. We'll discuss the pathophysiology later. So it's something very simple. If the function of spectrum is to give, what time is it? So every 50 minutes, please, we have to stop. 45? 35, so we have 10 more minutes. Okay. So something simple. The first thing you want to do is you want to learn the function of spectrum. You want to know it's a protein. If it's a protein, the gene that codes for this protein is located on DNA. That means you can inherit it, you can give it to your children and so forth, right? So we're combining genetics as well. But just because people have no spectrum, the RBC will become spherical in shape. That means they lose the ability to exchange gases. Oh yeah, before I go, why do you think RBCs that used to be spherical When they mature, they become biconcave. Again, this is not an accident, so it must serve a purpose. What is the purpose of a biconcave shaped structure compared to a spherical shape? That's what I heard. Surface area. Increase surface area. Increase surface area. So biconcave RBC has more surface area. Therefore, they can exchange more oxygen and carbon dioxide per millimeter, or micrometer in this case. To increase the surface area, you suddenly acquire the ability to exchange more. Maybe I'll give you an example. Look at my fingers. If my hand is attached, this hand has more surface area or this one? This one. Look, these areas are they're not exposed. The gaps between my fingers, right? That's why in GI you have microvilli and villi, not a flat surface, to increase surface area for absorption of nutrition. So RBC, that's biconcave, has a lot more surface area. Now spherocyte have what? Less surface area. Less surface area. Therefore, what happens to the ability to exchange gases? Decreases. So wouldn't you actually starve for oxygen in cases when you have to work out and do things? Yeah. That means your heart rate will increase. That means you start pumping more blood. But at the same time, blood pressure increases, right? Because you have to push all this blood more frequently so you can deliver more oxygen. If the surface area is decreased, the only way you can increase delivery of oxygen is by speeding of blood, by making more RBCs. All of this can cause problems. Now, one thing is, if you lack spectrin, what happens to the surface of RBC? Isn't it weak? Isn't it more likely to rupture? And if you increase the flow of blood, the likelihood of this is even more. So as a result, you can have hemolytic anemias. Okay? So spherocytosis will lead to hemolytic anemia. Hemo means blood, lytic means what? Breaking, rupture, right? Again, so just to kind of relate it, sometimes, if you just talk about anatomy alone or histology alone, it becomes boring. So I have to go to patho from time to time. But I'll go over all of this pathology in details, okay? The only goal right now you have is spectrin is a part of RBC's membrane. The function, the normal function of this protein called spectrin is what? To make the RBC biconcave and flexible. If it's not there, you lose those abilities. Ankyrin, same thing. Ankyrin is the same thing. Okay, the two proteins get together and then it's almost like a tent. You guys gone camping, right? You put the rods and then there's that clip. So that clip is spectrin. If it's missing, you cannot fix the rods and the tent will fall. That's what happens. Or you guys seen the dome here, the soccer dome. Was it a soccer dome on 294? So you see when it snowed a lot and these things were not strong enough and it collapsed. Same thing. That's what happens with these cells. Okay, so ankyrin and spectrin, same thing. Band 3 is very, very, very important. Again, it's a protein. Again, it's a protein. Band 3. This protein usually exchanges chloride and bicarbonate. Now look, as long as you know it's a transporter, it is a transporter. It transports electrolyte into the cell and out of the cell. But does it transport the two electrolytes in the same direction or opposite? Opposite. So you call it what? Antiport or exchanger. Excellent. Okay. Now, although I have the direction in this case in one, but it can do vice versa. Okay, it depends where it is, in the lung level or the tissue level. It can take chloride in or out. But it's always exchanging chloride for who? For bicarbonate. Just to tell you a little bit more, what's the charge on chloride? Negative what? 1. Excellent. Be more observant. Very good. How about bicarbonate? HCO3 stands for bicarbonate, okay? What's the charge on it? Negative 1. Negative 1. Okay? So if you have to kick chloride out and you bring bicarbonate in, did you change the charge of the cell overall? No, that's why it does that, okay? It just, I'll tell you the physiology, but just for now, memorize. The function of band 3 is simply to exchange chloride for who? Bicarbonate. Or exchange bicarbonate for who? Doesn't matter how I say it. Okay? So, it also gives the membrane some stability. Okay? It also gives the membrane some stability. But the main purpose of this transport or exchanger is to maintain pH. pH within the RBCs. Okay? Okay. Yeah.
Any difference in quantity?
In quantity,
Yeah, I mean, as opposed to running like weight.
same thing. It has to have even. 1 for 1. The ratio is 1 to 1. Let's say it has to pump 1,000 chloride, it has to take in 1,000 bicarbonate, or vice versa. Okay. On the surface of RBCs, we have, look, these were for structural stability, right? Spectrin and ankyrin in band 3 were for structural stability of a cell. In band 3, in addition to that, for some physiology, for some transport in and out. But there's a few more things. There are proteins, glycoproteins. I'll put GP, glycoprotein. There are glycoprotein on the surface of RBC, 2 of them. And they're not used for any structural stability. They're only used for identification. 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 Okay, so that will be, I'll call one of them, let's say, look like this. Good? And the other one looks like this. Let's change colors too. You know what? Just so you can see. Blue and red. Maybe I'll label it for you just so you can, because then I don't know what to call them. Squiggly and straight. I'll call this A and I'll call this B. Just for simplicity. Okay? Because we like ABCs or 1, 2, 3, right? For labeling, right? Are A and B the same? No. This is a glycoprotein on the surface of RBC, so is this. They're not exactly the same. So they're different. You can give them name if you wish. But the scientists didn't do that. They called them A and B. They act like antigens for identification of who? RBCs. And what is an antigen? We have to understand what is an antigen, otherwise it will not make sense. Anything that's foreign to the body. Okay, that's correct. That's an aspect of it.
Stimulate the immune system.
Any particle that activates the immune system, especially T helper cells and B cells, yes. Okay? So as a result, antigens can be internal or external. Although overall it's mostly external, it's correct amount. Okay, so antigen is any particle that is recognized as foreign, even though you can have your own internal antigen. For autoimmune diseases, for example, you know, things happen in your body, they switch and they change, or you have a mutation, you can recognize it as foreign. Anything that is recognized by your immune system as foreign is called an antigen. Now, so you heard of type A blood and type B blood, right? And what's the third one?
Oh.
O. O is 0, means not existing. There's no such antigen. Okay, so RBC that have A antigen are called type A blood. RBCs that only have B antigen are called type B blood. If they have both, they're called what? AB. If they have none, O. Okay? All right. Oh, I just want to identify it for that purpose, although we'll spend time on what are the reactions between different types of bloods. Okay? So if I have type A blood, and let's say Al-Taib has type B blood, and I give him a sample of my blood, that means he will produce antibodies against my antigen, he will attack. So you have to match them. We'll discuss them. Okay, so for now, just know on the surface of RBC, what do you find? You find ankyrin, you find spectrin, you find type A antigen, or type B, or both, or none. And band 3. Okay?
What about RH?
RH, okay, it's another protein, small protein. It's called D antigen.
Is it also a glycoprotein?
Okay, it's called D antigen. Now, RH factor is not a big deal when it comes to immune reaction. Your immune system really doesn't react to that extent as much as it does for A and B. So it's less antigenic. It is still antigenic, but less. Okay? It's less antigenic. Okay? So at the end of the day, the idea here is, I'll go some immunology later on. So the idea here is if you have the wrong antigen and your body produces antibodies, these antibodies with the help of complements will cause hemolysis. It will attack the RBC and it will rupture. That's the problem. That's what you have to imagine. Okay? But I'll go over the physiology. Let's take a break. At least you know the factors that are found on the surface of RBCs, and we'll go to the function of each. Yeah? This is not going to be good because, I have to make...
We should get you a mic so that you can walk around.
No, you know what I have to do? I'll just record.
Put on your shirt.
Why is not stopping? No, the reason I'm saying is because it's better that I sit here and draw more.
You know,